The chair would like to pose a few questions to the COA, Attorney Camora. Attorney Camora, do you agree with me that COA, under the Constitution, have the power and duty to examine, audit, and settle all accounts pertaining to all revenues, receipts, so forth, and so on?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And do you also agree with me that under the 1987 Constitution, it likewise provides, specifically Section 21, that the Senate or the House of Representatives or any of the respective committees may conduct inquiry in aid of legislations in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So perhaps this is the reason kung bakit po kayo sumunod sa subpoena duces tecum na binigay po sa inyo nitong committee. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Salamat.
Mr.
At dito
Chair,
po sa...
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Congressman Marcoleta, I'm still asking questions. At dito po sa aming rules, maliwanag po dito, under Section 1, power to conduct inquiries. Pursuant to Section 21, Article 6 of the Constitution, the House of Representatives or any of its committees may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation in accordance with these rules. Second paragraph, the filing or pendency of a case before any court, tribunal, or quasi-judicial or administrative body shall not stop or abate any inquiry conducted to carry out a legislative purpose. Now, my question is, ito pong audit na ginagawa po ninyo, nung kayo po, ito po ay nandirito na sa NBank na po ba to? Sa commission proper na po ba to?
Wala pa po, Mr. Chair.
Asa na po to?
Yung ND po, hindi po
Would
po
you
siya
consider
na-appeal.
this as quasi-judicial? You are exercising quasi-judicial function?
If it goes to appeal po, it
Okay.
will be quasi.
If it does not goes to appeal, nasaan pa lang po to?
Nasa audit.
Administrative.
Yes po.
Tama po ba?
Yes po.
So, ibig sabihin, pasok po dito sa amin. Sa binasa ko po, the filing or pendency of a case before any court, tribunal, or quasi-judicial or administrative body shall not stop or abate any inquiry conducted to carry out a legislative purpose. Tama po ba?
Yes po, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Ano po ang rationale nito? Ang rationale po nito, because Congress has the ano po? Anong function po meron kami?
Legislative.
On top of that, may oversight po kami. Yung
Yeah,
po ang
yes, Mr.
rationale
Chair.
nito. We have an oversight function. Now, to question the constitutionality of Congress, ano po ang pinakatama pong hakbang gawin? To file a petition before the Supreme Court. Petition for certiorari. Now, let me walk you through the specific constitutional provision. In the case of Romero versus Estrada, the Supreme Court emphasized that the inapplicability of the sub judice rule to inquiries in aid of legislation is not limited to criminal or administrative cases. It can be extended to appealed cases and special civil actions awaiting final disposition before the Supreme Court. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to subvert any intended inquiry by Congress through the convenient ploy of instituting a criminal or an administrative complaint. Surely the exercise of sovereign legislative authority, of which the power of legislative inquiry is an essential component, cannot be subordinate to a criminal or administrative investigation. Ito po ba ang first time na ang COA ay nasa pina ng Kongreso o ng Senado?
Ngayon lang po sa akin ay hindi ko po alam kung may ibang instances sa rest of Goa. Pero since ngayon lang po ang experience
Sa inyo
ko,
po?
so I can speak
Okay.
only for myself.
So, pero maliwanag naman po yung ating explanation na ang Kongreso po ay may kapangyarihan. Tama po ba? That is the reason why you complied with the subpoena duces tecum that Congress or this committee issued before the Commission on Audit. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congressman Marcoleta.
May I make a very short rejoinder? Mr. Chair, considering
Yes, please.
that you mentioned Article 6, Section 21 of the Philippine Constitution, that relates to our function in aid of legislation. It's inquiry or investigation in aid of legislation. Incidentally, Mr. Chair, Section 22 is the oversight function of Congress. Dapat sana ang COA ay doon po kayo bumase doon sa oversight function, not under Section 21, because that is in aid of legislation. That is the limitation imposed by law. Hindi po lahat ng investigation ay po pwede. Under that particular section of 21, there should be a legislative purpose. Nakabalangkas na po yun. Hindi po gagawa ng batas habang nagtatanong o pagkatapos na magtanong. Very clear po, it is in aid of legislation. Dapat, prerequisite po, nakabalangkas na yung batas. The reason why we are asking you to appear before us is to help us complete the legislation. Sa ngayon po, with all the questions answered and asked, wala pa pong malinaw na legislative purpose. Am I correct?
Meron na po.
Ano?
Mr. Chairman, marami po.
Point of order.
Well, in
Mr. Chair.
fact,
What is the point of order
Point
of
of order,
Congressman
Mr. Chair.
Acop?
The Honorable Marcoleta has still the floor. Let him finish. As I've said a while ago, we follow our rules.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please continue, Congressman Marcoleta.
Yes, I know that, but ang sinasabi ko lamang po, I do not contest that. Pero ang sinasabi ko, if it is in aid of legislation, maliwanag po sana na una na po yung balangkas. Kahit outline lang. Hindi yung pong nagtatanong na tayo ng nagtatanong, sapagkat meron din pong jurisprudence na hindi dapat mauna po yung kabayo kaysa sa kalesa. Kasi po yung kabayo, hihilahin niya yung kalesa. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Thank you
Mr.
for
Chair.
your time.
Congressman Acop,
Chair.
you recognize.
I do not want to debate with the erudite Honorable Marcoleta. But I think Article 6, Section 21 of the 1987 Constitution will be followed. Why? Because this was strengthened by the case of Romero versus Estrada in the year 2009, where it was decided by the Supreme Court, and I would like to quote, inquiries in aid of legislation are utilized to enable the legislative body to gather information and thus legislate wisely and effectively, and to determine whether there is a need to improve existing laws or enact new or remedial legislation, albeit the inquiry need not result in any potential legislation. Those are the words of the Supreme Court. The conduct of inquiries in aid of legislation may not result in any legislation at all, as decided by the Supreme Court. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
May I
Yes.
pose some questions, Mr. Chair?
Before I recognize you, let me first quote the case of Cong versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Dito po, sabi po dito, ang Kongreso ang guardian of public funds. Ang investigasyon sa government transaction is a proper exercise of the power of inquiry. Kabilang sa mga transaksyong ito ang government agencies created by Congress. Number 2, officers whose position are within the power of Congress to regulate or even abolish. Yes, Congressman Zia Adjong.
Thank you.
Alonto Adjong, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me pose a few questions to COA. Mr. Chair, I do not want to even approach to some degree or proximity to argue or debate with three of the lawyers here. But as a non-lawyer, I do understand the meaning of integrity. So I'd like to ask COA, Mr. Chair, a few questions. Kasi medyo ako nabahala din po ako because of some concerns posed by one of our veteran legislator here. Ayoko din po na ma-compromise yung integrity and independence of the Commission, COA. So I'd just like to ask COA a few questions. When we ask questions, you were invited here as a resource person, am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And your response will only be limited within the documents that you have provided to this committee by virtue of the subpoena, am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Your answers will only be limited with what you have issued based on the observation memorandum and the notice of disallowances. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
That based on your questions, you do not impose your individual, personal opinions, but rather based on the observations that you have issued.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, of all the questions that you were asked and some of the positions that each of the members of this committee have taken so far, would that any way influence you to approach the process of your audit?
Somehow, it will make me more circumspect, but we will still base our audit based on our standards.
Okay,
It's
let
that
me-
we will,
let me paraphrase my
We
question.
will,
Let me paraphrase my question. Should this committee, or I'm sure that we will reach a point where the committee will submit its committee report, would any in the items of the committee report be used as a replacement of the way you have conducted your audit or continue to conduct your audit?
Mr. Chair, we will still conduct our audit objectively.
So meaning to say, whatever would be the decision of the committee, it will never replace, or
Yes.
it will never set as a guide for
Yes,
you
Mr.
to
Chair.
approach
Yes, Mr. Chair.
the process of your audit insofar as this discussion is concerned, the AOM and the notice of disallowances. Am I
Yes,
correct?
Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So meaning to say, whatever questions or the possible legislations that we will introduce, that will never affect the decision of the COA or the proceedings of COA to
Ye-
continue auditing the confidential funds.
As to the confidential funds now of the
Yes,
OVP
that's
and
correct.
the DepEd, yes, Mr. Chair.
So meaning
As
to say, yes,
the-
meaning to say, whatever whatever issues or topics we discuss here, it will still irrelevant insofar as the process of your auditing is concerned.
Yes, sir. We will,
It will that
Mr. Chair, to,
we will never replace or substitute you.
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
That to me, Mr. Chair, is the idea of integrity. That I understand. That COA, their participation here, They are merely responding to the questions of the members of this committee in order to
Mr. Chair,
formulate possible
with-
in order to
yeah.
formulate possible legislation, Mr. Chairman, that insofar as independence and integrity is concerned, I personally believe that the decision of this committee in how we discuss the issue of confidential funds will never in any way dissuade COA in the way they approach their auditing system or how they conduct the auditing of all these funds that is now being discussed by this committee, Mr. Chair. That I think that I understand as is yung meaning po nung sinasabing independence at integrity na nami-mention po. Tama po ba 'yon, Nakoa?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Whatever our learnings here, we will not apply to this particular case, but we will review our standards, our audits, our procedures, and we will apply it to all the agencies that will fall under the audit of the IFAO and the rest of COA po.
So it will never influence
No, sir. It
the
is still
final decision of the COA.
it is still the prerogative of COA.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Camora. Thank you, Mr. Chair.